Welcome to Finding Ourself, a podcast about the power of presence, connection, and the transformation that is only possible through touch. So if you're curious about human connection, somatic healing, or what it really means to belong, you're in the right place. Let's find ourselves together. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Finding Ourself podcast. I am Keeley Shoup and I'm joined by my co-host Michelle Renee. And today we get the distinct honor of talking to another storied professional in the industry, someone who we've known for several years, have such great respect for. I'm so excited that you're here. Welcome, Nellie.
Thank you.
Nellie, would you like to give us a little introduction? We know who you are because we've known you for a while, but let the audience know
Yeah.
who you are, what you do, where you're at.
Yeah. So I've been practicing as a cuddlist since 2017. I finished the training that year and started right in on seeing people. I live and work here in Western Massachusetts. I do offer virtual sessions as well. So currently have a client in Virginia, which is kind of cool. And I came to Cuddlist work because of chronic illness. I was dealing with kind of increasing health issues that were making it harder and harder to work a like regular 9 to 5 sort of a job. I have a background in massage therapy, in sexological body work, in doing like workshops and things like that. So had like kind of touch professional work. I had done a number of things with Cuddle Party in the past, and I found out that Madeline, uh, I can never pronounce her last name right.
Guanazo.
Guanazo, thank you. That she had started this organization called Cuddlist. And I was like, oh, that sounds really awesome. And it felt like it was a really good match for kind of my skill sets and my interests. I also had done some work with the Wheel of Consent with Betty Martin. And so I went ahead and did the training and got started in doing this work. And I have a small but very rich practice. It's evolved. It continues to evolve. The folks that seem to attract to me tend to be people who are dealing with chronic illness themselves or that are dealing with disability, folks that are wanting to work on trauma, wanting to work with issues around touch violations and just like trust violations. And so it's been really beautiful, and I've learned so much. And I just like love being able to have these relationships in my life with these clients, and to get to see them grow is like really rewarding. So that's a little bit about me.
May I jump off and have a question for you to kick us off?
Sure.
When I was listening to you say that, one of the questions that came to mind was you said that you found this work and it was a good fit or good match. What, how would you describe what it is you do, and why was Cuddlist work a match for whatever that is?
So I have always been drawn towards somatic work, drawn towards learning about embodiment, learning about all these different sensations that happen in the body, how to be able to have language around it. And through that curiosity about the body, about somatics, I found out about the work around consent and communication, and that felt so meaningful to me. And like, starting in on having my own practices with learning about the wheel of consent, with attending cuddle parties, back in the early 2000s, and just like getting a sense of like, wow, this is really cool. And I love the concept of like, the people who founded Cuddle Party were sex educators, and they really wanted to have an opportunity for people to get to explore platonic touch, because like not all touch has to be sexual. And that was such a like meaningful thing to see that modeled, to get to experience that. And it's something that like I felt like, wow, yeah, I really want to be able to share this with other people. I had looked into doing like surrogate partner work, but because of some of the stuff with my health, um, it felt like a little too intensive for me. And yet I found myself drawn towards wanting to do relational work with people, and I actually really enjoy the aspect of Cuddlist that it's two-way touch. It's not like massage where it's like I am touching my client and my client's not going to touch me back. And in doing Cuddlist work, there's shared touch, and the learning that can come from that is like really cool.
Yeah. I I also heard in there, and this seems really important, and it's not something that we've talked about yet. Um, you say you're specializing, or at least the practice that you have really centers a lot or often around disability, and focusing like that. I also was hearing you say how much the body focus of this was like that was the first thing you said, and then you went into the consent piece. And as I'm thinking about those things in my mind, like the experience of folks with disability in medical settings and how much touch happens without consent. So I'm
Mhm.
curious how that plays into your work. I'm curious, does that show up at all? What's the deep
Oh yeah.
there?
Yeah, that's a really like important piece of it. I had a client who I haven't been able to see her for quite a while because she has become so ill with her illness, the like degenerative disease that she has. But she specifically sought me out and was traveling from the Boston area to come see me because she really wanted to work on being able to experience touch that was non-medical, and to not feel like she was constantly flinching away from being touched, because like she was being subjected on just about a daily basis to having things done to her body. And so we took it so slow, and really helping her to like tune in and notice, like just this process of noticing what was she feeling. And sometimes even just like having her actually take like her move my hand to place it on her to start out with, to like feel, like I am in control of this, like
The
I
empowerment
have
of that.
control over like how I'm being touched. And and then from there, like, we got into getting curious about like what sort of touch felt nurturing to her. And she was really clear about certain parts of her body that like she just definitely did not want to be touched. But that for her, like her back and her hair, those felt like really safe places to receive nurturing touch. And so getting to like have some time with like just rubbing her back. And she also experienced a lot of childhood trauma. She's been sick with this disease since she was a young child. And had a pretty hard time, and parents that were just kind of like overwhelmed and not physically connecting with her. Yeah. So that's just one client. I've had other folks come to me. One of the exercises that I learned through like a pro with the like wheel of consent work is to have them be in control of how close or how far away I am, and to play that game where it's like you get to motion, come closer, stop, back up, and to help them to like notice how they feel. And so like, well, like just kind of getting comfortable. And there was a client I had that like we spent the first session playing that for quite a while and just noticing. And at the end, I think we maybe got to a place of like touching hands. And that was our first session. And like that was really great to be able to offer that space. And one of the things too with clients who have a lot going on and are in situations where they have to have things done to their body is helping them to think about where they can ask for something. And so like coming back to the client who was having all sorts of medical touch like all the time, just having to have things done to her, and she had to have a procedure, and her anesthesia protocol is just like pages worth of this process. And so like she is awake like in the operating room. Usually they knock you out beforehand, but she had to be awake in the operating room. And in the past, she had been awake when they were strapping her down. And she like we talked about like kind of what can you ask for, and like what do you want to ask your anesthesiologist for. And she was able to speak up and say like, hey, can I have it quiet? Can I have like this mass of people that are going to be engaged with my anesthetized body in a little bit? Can I have them like stay back and you be the only person touching me? And the anesthesiologist was like, yes, I can do that. And it was so lovely to hear that she felt empowered in having these conversations with me about like, yes, you have to have all these things done to you, but like what are things you could just give it a try to ask for. So that's like kind of another piece that I like to bring into the work, especially when somebody's dealing with like tough stuff, and being able to like say, hey, it's okay to like advocate for how you want to be touched or not touched, even in a medical setting.
It's so remarkable how deep and how wide this kind of work goes. You know what I mean? Just the application of it to advocate in your medical field. The medical experiences can be horrific. And
Mhm.
giving that kind of empowerment, giving that kind of autonomy in that space, it's huge. I love it.
Yeah. I feel like I also benefited from when I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for about 10 years. And during my time out there, I worked for, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 years with an organization called Project Prepare. And we taught medical students how to do breast and gynecological exams. And at Stanford University, we also ran a observed clinical, like standardized observed clinical OSCEs encounters. So, like getting to work with med students and like teaching them how to do these exams on my own body. And that was also like a very empowering experience that I feel like has helped me to be able to share like how you can advocate, how you can communicate with your doctors, with healthcare providers, to be like, hey, like I'd like to have this. And I still wish that like every single medical student got to have that sort of training when it comes to doing those intimate exams, because like it's nerve-wracking for the student as much as it is for the patient. So like if you can help the student be at ease in doing these exams and know how to like help their patient be put at ease and be able to kind of include certain aspects of like consent and just like, do you like, I'm going to examine your breast. Do you feel comfortable with me doing that? And like explaining what they're going to do before they do it, those sorts of things. Yeah, so like that sort of stuff is just like I'm passionate about it.
I think that in our little bubble, right, we get really used to like being encouraged to ask for what we want. And that was something that was a really foreign concept to me, even though I never considered it a foreign concept. It never dawned on me that had never been encouraged in my life. And in the medical spaces, it definitely doesn't dawn on a lot of people that they actually have a say, or kind of like we think about birth plans and things like that, that for your client to have that plan with the anesthesiologist, people wouldn't think of that. And for you to be able to like show them in your spaces that they can ask for what they want. They can't get a yes until they ask. It's automatically a no.
Yeah.
I see that show up in a multitude of different kinds of clients, but that aha moment of like, oh, I could ask. And I remember when it happened to me. Like I remember being in a call, probably with Madeline actually, where I left the call and I contacted my now husband, but boyfriend at the time. And I went, hey, next time we're together, I need to ask you for some things because I realized I've never actually asked you for anything in this relationship because it was such a foreign concept. So yeah, the modeling in this work is so powerful.
Yeah. And it's something that like is a practice for me, cuz like I'm definitely of the like people pleaser caretaker variety, so like the framework of having consent, of being clear with communication, of maintaining, respecting, listening to my boundaries, and really paying attention to the other person's boundaries, has just like enriched my life in so many ways. And I also, I had a client who came to work with me who we figured out pretty quickly was a boundary pusher. Like he just push on the boundaries. And working with him was tough, but like so rewarding, because it was just like, okay, like let's really like thinking about how to help him notice what was going on inside of himself when he was pushing boundaries. And for him, it was childhood stuff, big time, of like his inner kid was like, oh, I don't, like I don't deserve this. I can't really ask for it, but like I want it, so I'm gonna like sneak around and try and take it. And being able to like help him connect to like, oh, that's what's going on. And it required me to like tune in on such a like tiny level of like just listening to my own body and noticing like certain, it was like, oh, like you were touching me in this way, and all of a sudden something shifted. What's going on? Because I feel different in my body. Like I am now not comfortable with what you're doing. Something has shifted. And being able to like slow down and help him to really feel that like I'm not I'm not like kicking you out. I'm not pulling away. I'm staying connected with you, but I'm also like gonna tell you what my boundary is and that like we've pushed it. So like what can we do to come back to where we're good with each other? And once we kind of figured out that that was what was going on, like we started to develop language together and a practice together. And he also like got to take that awareness out into the world to be able to like start noticing other people and having this like openness that he never used to have. So that was really cool.
Could I
And I love
ask
that
you?
he was along for the ride. I don't not everyone is down for that kind of
Oh yeah.
slow, intentional, but it sounds like that was such a good fit.
Yeah, yeah, and, like, it was the sort of thing that I definitely don't think, like, every client would be there, but he had come to see me because he wanted to change. He was ready to do things differently because there was a part of him that was recognizing, like, something's not working here."
That's the beauty of the relational aspect of our work, is it is a mirror for even though we're in like a little laboratory or sandbox playground space, it's such a great space to see how things are happening. And because you're a really attuned practitioner, and that was where my next question was going to be. Nellie, did you start out being so aware of what was happening in session and in your body and all those things to be able to notice and say, oh, something shifted. What's happening here? I'm not comfortable anymore. Was that something you came into the work with?
So there's certain pieces of that I came into the work with because of things I'd done previously. So definitely like just being interested in somatics in general and doing a bunch of different like workshops and things that were about like how to notice different sensations in your body. Um, I I feel like I have kind of always tended to be pretty darn aware of like sensations inside of my body. I'm not somebody that like uh easily numbs out from my bodily experience, which has its negatives as well, because sometimes it's like, whoa, okay, I'm feeling too much.
Mhm.
Like, okay, this is a little overwhelming. But it has its benefits in being able to learn how to like harness and understand what those sensations are, and being able to like have an internal dialogue with myself about like, okay, like this is like, yeah, this is what I'm feeling, and like this is what's going on around outside of me, and like getting curious about like where's this coming from? Is this something that can be adjusted? Like kind of playing around with that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
How would you say that your work has evolved, or how has it evolved, like, the larger context of your life?
When I first started seeing clients, I was welcoming in just kind of general like cuddle for feeling good, relaxing, that sort of thing. And over the years, I've really figured out that, like, I'm glad that people enjoy that, but, like, that's not where my heart is at. That's not where my passion is at. I really feel more drawn to working with people who have something specific going on, that's a difficulty around touch, that's a difficulty around communication that they'd like to work on. Um, and I feel like I'm continuing to kind of get clearer and clearer about who I want to be working with. And it's continuing to change. I knew, like, from the beginning that I felt a strong desire to be in a place of working with folks who are part of the disability, part of the chronic illness community, because I have personal experience with that. I know how hard it can be. I know how lonely it can be to be living with disability, with chronic illness in a very ableist, capitalistic society. And so, it's one of these things of, like, I've never made very much money as a cuddlist. I mean, for one, I can't see a ton of clients in a week. Like, the max I can usually do is like 2 in a day, and even that is sometimes too much for me. So I have to really kind of, like, space things out to be able to take care of my own body. But eh, oh, there goes the I just took um but it's something that, like, I want to be able to give back, because I've had people within the chronic illness, within the disability community, that have helped me out a whole bunch when I was really struggling. And, like, it just feels important to me to be able to make space for that. And I think it's also, like, people say we're in post-COVID times, but for the community of people that I mostly work with, we're not. Like, and COVID's still killing people. And I work with some folks who are seriously immunocompromised, and they can't do the vaccine. And, like, getting even a cold could be really bad for them. So I'm continuing to ask all of my clients to mask, and I wear a mask. And so that, I think that's a piece that's, like, limiting how many people actually want to work with me, because I'm holding that kind of extra caution. But there are definitely some folks that are, like, appreciative of having that extra caution.
I imagine
That's a
it's not.
difficult
Go ahead. Go ahead.
that's a difficult thing to navigate, right? I do a lot of travel work.
Mhm.
And I remember landing in DC one day and getting a message from my husband that was like, "Hey, I know we barely interacted in the few hours that we were together in between both of our travels, but my roommate at this conference I was just at just tested positive for COVID."
Mhm.
And I was like, "All right, so I have to send out messages to everybody that I have booked in this city away from home." And it's one of those things, like, I let people make their own choices, right? But if I have a client that has a more compromised immune system, it's real hard for me to step back and let them make that choice, because it's such a space of, but I really want this, I really need this. And they're
Mhm.
weighing, like, literally life and death to be able to have access. And then it's coming up with solutions that can mitigate and harm reduction. We'll mask up and we'll, we do all these extra things to try to help it. It's such a need
Yeah.
that people will risk that. And so you putting that extra effort in, I'm so sure that they appreciate that.
And so rare, right? Not it's such a service. So that's so incredible. I'm echoing that entirely.
Thanks.
For note, nobody got COVID. My husband didn't get COVID. Everybody was fine. But it's one
Yay.
of those panic moments. I don't want
Oh
to
yeah,
I don't want to be
totally.
patient zero,
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
You bring up a good point about like, and then you had you informed consent, right? We're talking all
Mhm.
about consent and all about how it interplays with our work and with medical and everything. So you give them the information, and then you said how difficult it was to let them make their choice about it.
Mhm.
Nellie, in your work, do you see moments like that where like you might have a different desire for the client, or you might have a emotional like pull come up, but you have to sit and wait and let them decide the thing for themselves?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like I think especially, like I have a client who really struggles with a lot of negative self-talk, and they have just such a strong belief in that negative self-talk being true, and sometimes it's really fucking hard to sit with that
Ah,
like, if they're not ready to like work on detaching from believing that's true, like, I can't do that for them.
I
And but what I can do is I can I can offer that, like, you know, what I'm seeing you do is not lining up with that voice. Just putting that out there. And also that, like, I'm really happy to stay connected with you, because, like, sometimes it's just like, oh, I'm so horrible. People are absolutely disgusted with me. I know it. And it's like, I don't find you disgusting.
I think that's the hardest thing that I have to hold.
Yeah.
When you brought that up, I was like, "Oh, yeah, that is such a hard space to be in." And I used to really battle with cognitive distortions, as some people would call it. And I was in therapy and working on it. And and
Mhm.
and I'll say that I went through numerous things that helped me break that pattern. But I'll leave a client sometimes and I say to my husband, what was it like to be in relationship with me when I was so hard on myself, right?
Mm.
Because it's not like that for me anymore. If that inner critic shows up for me, I'm like, "Oh, what's going on? This is not the usual," right? And
Yeah.
and I just I love my clients so much, and when they're hard on themselves, it's so that is the hardest part, I think, for me in this
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
I This is resonating so much, and I had a situation recently with a client where I tried a new tactic for the first time. I am more apt and more prone to being a very gentle, very soft, very like, "Oh my gosh, I hear that you're feeling that really, hard feeling. How can I support you? How can I be there for you?" Right? Normally that's and I've done that with this client a million times. And finally there was just a point to which they're like, "And you think I'm disgusting." And I said, it actually doesn't feel good to hear you place those hurtful words in my mouth, because I don't see myself ever saying that to you. And it makes me wonder if you think I am that way and then I don't feel like you see me. And I
Mm.
tried that different approach, and it was a gear shift. It was a big gear shift in the session, and it produced some really rich discussion. I don't know if it's better than the other way or not, but it was a very different vibe after that point. They're like, "Oh, well,"
Mm.
because there's such a, if I'm self-deprecating, then no one can say that, like, I'm being mean to myself. Well, actually, you placed those words in my mouth, and it doesn't feel good to be seen as that voice, because I don't feel
Yeah.
like that voice. And so if we wanna talk about how there's a part of you that's showing up, yeah, but please don't place that on what I'm feeling, because I would rather
Mm.
you just ask me what I'm feeling, and then I will be honest with you, and we can build that kind of trust and relation and, like, it went a whole direction, but
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome, Keely. I love that. I'm gonna be pondering how to incorporate that. But like, like you were saying, Michelle, like I definitely have my own personal experience of like having really intense like negative self-talk, a lot of stuff that I've worked through. Parts work has been super helpful for me. I have a therapist that I've been working with for, I think at this point it's like maybe uh, I think we're maybe at like 10 plus years of working together. And we do inner bonding work, which is similar to internal family systems. And I've been looking into IFS more recently as well and kind of playing around with that. Um, but it's something that like has really changed things for me, and it's something that like I like to offer just like especially if people are kind of curious about, or like they are expressing difficult things. I like to just kind of offer a little bit of a conceptual idea of like, so there's this stuff that's called parts work, and like, this is kind of what the concept is, and being able to like have a way of talking to these different parts inside of yourself, and especially like paying attention to your inner kid. Cause like I especially love being able to like get to talk to people's inner kids. Cause a lot of our inner kids are really hurting. A lot of our inner kids are really, really scared and feel really alone, feel really squished down, like they can't, and then they like pop up in ways that it's like, oh, wait, the inner kid's running the show all of a sudden. Um, and so like that's something that, with certain clients, I like to bring that in just a little bit. I am definitely, like I tell them right off the bat, like I am no expert in this. I have my own personal practice around it. I've, studied it a little bit, but like, if you want to if you want to play with this, it's something that we can talk about.
Well, that's another good
Great.
thing about parts work in general is, like, unless you are practicing specifically, like, IFS, right? Which, up until very, very recently, anyone could take those trainings, that you didn't have to be a licensed clinician to take them. So I took some of the trainings in IFS and loved it, absolutely loved
Mhm.
it. But parts work as a broad umbrella is purely like a framework that kinda anyone can use to just look at how it is to experience different disparate emotions at any time,
Mhm.
right? Like, it is just simply a framework that anyone can adopt or use. I'll use it. I love that you give a formal introduction, and sometimes I'll just say like, "Hey, that part, there's sounds like there's a critical part coming up," or something like that, even without like, "Yeah, what do you think about that
Mhm.
part of you? What does it sound familiar to?" Or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
always I'm always like, "Let's connect with your inner child." That I always use the inner child, languaging, but and like,
Mhm.
what would young Susie wanna do? What did you like to do when you were a kid? And I've just started, reworking my office to bring in more stuff from childhood, like some easy games, and my coloring stuff is in here now, and yeah,
Mm.
and Keeley and all the stuffies. I'm not doing that part. I literally thought about my childhood bedroom the other day, and I would have been like, we would have had more pillows to pull off the bed. It would have been a bunch of stuffies, and I'm not going to go that far, but I did think about one of those hammocks that you put up on the wall that hold all the stuffed animals. Because I'm always
That's
like,
fun.
every time I go to the grocery store or any store and there's any of the stuffed animals, my husband knows that we have to stop and check them out because my little girl wants to bring home all of them.
Yeah. For me, a lot of it is like reading kids' books. I've had some clients that like really like being read to. I've had some clients that really like being sung to. I like singing. So like, pulling up like songs I remember from learning from like Sesame Street or like fun things like that.
What's your name one? Because I have a few kids books here that I also use in session, but what's one of the kids books that you like?
So, the Big Orange Splot is a Daniel Pinkwater book that it's a childhood favorite of mine. I like sharing that, and the basically the narrative to it is that everyone lives on this street, and Mr. Plumbeam one day has this like random seagull carrying a bucket of orange paint, and he drops the bucket of orange paint onto Mr. Plumbeam's house, and then there's this splot, and the neighbors are like, oh, you've got to fix that, and he doesn't fix it right away, and then he goes out and just like turns his house into like this kind of like really cool, very personalized space, and all the neighbors are in an uproar. And then each neighbor starts to go and talk to him individually. And the line from the book is that um, this house represents my dreams, and like I am my dreams, and this house represents them. That sort of kind of idea. And so by the end of the book, all of his neighbors have totally turned their house into like manifestations of things they've dreamed about. And I just, so that's one that I love. And then a childhood song that I particularly love that's from Sesame Street is the one that Ernie sings of "I'd like to visit the moon." It's such a sweet song, and like he wants to visit all these places, but he wants to be able to come home again and be with the people and places he loves.
I
So,
love
Aw.
this.
yeah.
Just
I feel like,
recently, Michelle gifted me two of your favorite kids' books so to have. What are those? Remind me the names of them, Michelle. They're in the other
yeah,
room. I can look at 'em.
yeah, The Rabbit Listened,
Mm.
which is really about what do we need is really just a place to be heard.
Mm.
And then The Missing Piece Meets the Big O from Shel Silverstein.
Oh,
And
cool.
that's just about how does it end up? Don't ask me, I'm terrible at comprehension. But trust me, it's a good one. The other one I have is Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. And it's all about like holding boundaries and how people will really try to push you.
That
But
sounds
I
like a
think
good
I
one.
have a note in my head right now that we need a thread in Cuddlist membership of favorite children's books to have in our offices.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
anyone who
I'd love
doesn't
that.
know, we have a whole resource section. If someone takes our training and then goes and joins our membership, we have a big collaborative resource pool place. And so that's what we're talking about. But what were we going to say,
Oh,
Nellie? Okay, go.
I have a client that right now we're reading bits of The Little Prince. So like this is my virtual client, and so it's interesting. Like I haven't done much with virtual sessions, but she had seen me for a couple of in-person sessions. She was moving to Virginia and really wanted to continue working with me, and I was like, sure, we'll figure this out. We'll figure out what works. So with her, it's like checking in and seeing what she's feeling like for the day. And sometimes it's listening, sometimes lately we've been doing kind of more meditation time, like I will like talk her through kind of like body scan, breathing, focused meditations, just so, she can help her nervous system calm down, because she's feeling pretty, she's got stress going on in her life, as we all do, right? Like the world's a very stressful place. And then sometimes we'll like lie down on the couch together and just like chat a little bit, or, sometimes I'm reading to her, things like that. We've done a bit of work with the Setting Boundaries That Stick book.
It's a good book.
Yeah, yeah. So we've gone through that a bit together. And that's also like really lovely. And we always have this we've got this like kind of routine of how we end our sessions is we'll take our blanket and just like wrap up in it and wrap our arms around ourselves and do some breathing together, and then like do like a big kind of squishy squeezy hug to ourselves. And there's a way that like it feels really connecting. So even though we're here talking to each other on a computer screen, like there's ways in which like it can feel connecting. So that's been cool to experiment with.
That's great. I do think of our work as more connection work than particularly cuddling, quote unquote, because there's no cuddling required.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that you're learning how to ask for what would feel best to you in that moment, not what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Right.
not your habits even, right? Like, I use this example with my clients a lot of the time. It's like, okay, well, maybe you are a person whose favorite ice cream is chocolate chip, right? But in any given moment, what if you're feeling like Rocky Road in that moment? It doesn't mean that your favorite ice cream isn't chocolate chip, but I think people get sometimes stuck in the idea, or just used to familiar with the idea that preferences are part of their identity,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to practice that skill of, hey, hold on, let me check in. What right now
Yeah.
is true for me? That's huge.
And
Yeah.
it's not like going to a restaurant where you pick a meal
Right.
and then you might try your person across the table's meal and then have like wish that you would have ordered that meal instead. We can change our mind and do something different, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
no risk in just trying it and then going, nope, I want to go back to Rocky Road or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's something that like I'm very frequently kind of checking in with clients about, like, what are you noticing? How are you feeling in this moment? Remember that like it's okay to change your mind, things like that. And especially for like new clients, I do sometimes offer like kind of some ideas, cuz sometimes they're just like I'm paralyzed. I think I want to explore touch, and like I have no idea, and the only thing they know about is spooning, and they're not ready to do that, right? And it's like, I don't know what to do. So I'll offer, it's like I offer some suggestions. I do have like the book of cuddles that Yoni and I'm forgetting the other
Cecilia.
Cecilia, that they put together. So that might be something that like we can look through together. But often we might start with like just, what does it feel like to just sit next to each other? How does that feel? And just notice. And like, is there anything, is there anything that you'd like to change about this? Would you like me to be closer? Would you like me to be further away?
Yeah.
And then sometimes I have a client that I see regularly that often we end up sitting next to each other, and she needs to be able to like just like talk and let stuff out. And it's like, I'm there. I'm happy to listen. And I'm happy to also just like have conversations. And it's one of the interesting things too about like the relational aspect of this is that unlike a therapist where there's a pretty clear boundary about like, I'm not going to disclose a whole bunch about my own personal life. I feel like in this work, there's much more of a like space where it's actually important to share about aspects of our personal life. So like people know who work with me, they know that I do stuff with the Lyme Disease Resource Center, which is a nonprofit that supports people with Lyme disease and other tick-borne illnesses. They know I'm on the board. They know that I volunteer with them. They know that I volunteer in fostering bunny rabbits with Western Mass Rabbit Rescue. Like that's something I'm into. They know that I like to garden. They know that I like have certain things that I get real geeky about, So like being able to have conversations together and that they can ask me questions and I really try to pay attention to like making sure that I feel comfortable in sharing about like if there is a question that feels a little like too kind of personal, then I'll let them know that like I don't feel comfortable answering that. But I'm pretty open about my life. And there's a way in which it feels like there's an opportunity to have that like experience of closeness with somebody, and we're in a container of like having specific agreements and understanding that respecting boundaries and communicating with each other is paramount. And that there can be a lot of safety that's involved in that. And it's also a great space to practice loving somebody. Like I talk about love with my clients, and I definitely like I'll say to them, it's like, oh, all my clients are right here. I hold them in my heart, because I do. I really care about everyone that I work with, even the ones that are difficult. I mean, in some ways, especially the ones that are difficult.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what did you learn about yourself in this work, do you think? Like, what did you not expect to learn, or what do you think like your growth, so you can't put it in one thing. What's
Yeah.
something that stands out for you in the arch of like this work and how it's affected you?
That it's like such a practice. And I feel like I continue to grow in the practice of being able to center myself and bring presence, that I continue to grow my skill around being able to repair when something goes wrong, that I continue to grow in being able to let them and let me.
That's a
It's
Mel
a concept.
Robbins. That's
Yeah,
a Mel Robbins quote.
it's something that I just recently like learned about, and I love it. I love, and like just being able to practice that, because there is, there's this part of me that I recognize that's like, I want to rescue people. I want to take care of them. I want to fix them and make them feel better. And that it's like, that's not what this work is about. It's about being present. It's about showing up. It's about being with Partners in Health has this concept of accompaniment through their medical practice, that they work in some of the most impoverished places in the world, and they have this commitment to having people accompanied in their health journey. And I'm like, like I feel like in a lot of ways, we get to accompany our clients, especially our clients that are working with us in a longer term capacity, that like we really get to know about their lives and they're sharing their life with us, and that we get to hold them as they journey through all these different things that come up in life. I've had clients who they came to see me because they had just had a spouse die. I have clients who, like, in the course of working with me, have had major things come up where, like, a friend passes, or they are getting a divorce, or, there's some major rupture in like relationships at home or issues with their family. And so it's really powerful to be able to be with people.
It's such a privilege.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so, so much for joining us today. This has been so rich and so lovely. Can you let people know where they can find you after this?
Yeah. So other than the Cuddlist directory website, it's nelliewilson.com, nelliewilson.net. I've had that domain for a very long time, but that's my website. I'm not particularly active on social media these days. I feel a bit ambivalent about it.
Okay.
But yeah, anyone who's in or around Western Massachusetts, if you're going to be traveling to Western Massachusetts, if you're in the New England area and want to connect with me, and like I said, I'm experimenting with virtual sessions. So if you're far away and feel like you'd like to work with me, I'm available.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for the work that you do. Thanks for being you in the world.
Yeah.
So until next time, big
Big
hugs
Big
hugs if
hugs
you
if you
want
want
them.
them.